The whole point of the extra credit is that you're not really
Bring any,
No, Moses just asked me. I should have. I have more buttons if that'd be useful.
Yeah.
Okay,
All
we
right,
can go put
well,
those out there, yeah.
and give buttons out to everybody that's
Sure.
got their little card.
Sure.
PSC is really official.
Sorry.
Yes. Oh, hello. I just been lecturing on capitalism.
I can't figure out how to.
It's an environmental justice class. The structure is, I think it's capitalism. Well, first, what is capitalism? What's justice? How does capitalism? And then looking specifically at urban justice, food systems,
For some reason, I can't. It won't let me do it horizontally, so that's what we got. It's like when I put it horizontal, it says, "Please switch to vertical." I don't know. I googled it and it said that I would be able to change it in settings, but then I wasn't able to. So it's good enough. I mean, everyone can
There's
see.
something, I recently, my son just changed mine for me. And it's, I think you have to swipe down and do something, I don't know.
Have you live streamed before like this?
I'm the worst person. I bet half the people here would know how to do it. I don't know.
No, I'll just leave it. I think it's okay. We have the other recording. Oh, so
You want me to ask around if anyone knows how to switch to
it's
horizontal?
it's okay. I'll Google and see if something easy comes up. But.
Okay, I think I'm gonna get started so we have time
So you're doing the tour, you go to every campus, right?
for us to have some.
Shout, baby.
Louder?
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Vivi Calderaro. I am teaching in the Interdisciplinary Studies program and the Environmental Justice and Sustainability programs. I thank you all for being here. I also want to thank especially Adriana Perez from our Department of Interdisciplinary Studies program for making sure that this space was available for us. And Nancy Romer from PSC, Zadie Obi, Jerry Markowitz, Daron Haglund, Alexander Schmutz for their support with all sorts of logistics to make this event happen. I also want to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place at what we call the John Jay College, on which CUNY operates, has been a site of human activity for thousands of years. It is on the shared lands and waters of the Lenape, Haudenosaunee, and the Rama formations of the Mahicantac River estuary and valley. This area is home to many indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island and around the world, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work with these communities and territories, caring for them as we know we should. I want to briefly ask those here today to spread the word we're doing in this regard by bringing these inquiries to your classrooms, offices, and spaces of gathering within and outside the walls of John Jay, thinking about communities in a very expansive and interconnected way. I ask this because, in fact, we are truly interdependent and interconnected. One thing college should teach us is our responsibility to understand our connections with each other on and off campus, in the city or anywhere in the world. We live in one of four biggest cities in the global north, and we have the power and resources to be role models individually and institutionally. To help us understand what is at stake and what we can do, we have invited several key speakers to give us a quick overview of the current status of energy usage at John Jay and suggest steps toward decarbonization. We have Thomas Driva, Director of EHS, and a key member of our Sustainability Council, who will let us know the current state of many decarbonization projects and crucially present us with some of our sustainability goals here on campus. We have New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who will make connections with city and state policies in regards to decarbonization and energy transition goals. We have Zach Jones from People's Power New York, presenting on energy sufficiency, peaker plants, and transition to renewables. Lastly, we have our dear Environmental Justice Club ex-president and alumna of John Jay College, Clarice Mancebo, and her current boss, Sheena Crystal from Leeward Campus, who will bring us back to John Jay, inviting us to put it all together within our home school. My share lives. The idea today is not only to let State Governor Hoku know that she's lagging behind on her green promises, but also to bring us together as a community embedded in urban planning and design processes where we aim to reflect our values of equity and sustainability. We will end this town hall with a brief breakout session so that you can all be part of these conversations. Before I leave the mic to our speakers, I want to share with you an idea that I had while organizing this event. How to help eradicate single-use plastics from campus while keeping our students, staff, and faculty well hydrated so that we can all function better. You all notice that refillable water stations throughout campus seem to be strategically located in competition with those evil vending machines that sell tap water in fans, single-use plastic bottles at outrageous prices, right? Well, what if we could roll the cost of our cheapest water bottle, which is right there, being for sale right now, into the technology fee for every student here on campus, that is $11,000 as per our website. Give them a refillable water bottle and also merge the campus ID into it so that in the morning when students leave their homes and come here, they will never forget to bring their refillable water bottle because it's also the ID that will let them enter campus. I am sure the technology to make this happen is not very complicated, nor the manpower to implement it. This will also most probably drive Pepsi out of its unethical business operation here at John Jay. I leave you with this thought, and thank you again very much, and we'll leave the mic to Thomas. Thank you.
Hello. Let's try it now. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So, yes, my name is Tom Garriga. I am the director of EHS here at John Jay College, but also I am part of the Sustainability Council here as well. So, you know, in conjunction here, I want to go over just kind of what we're kind of talking about, the background of decarbonization, and kind of what has already been going on, but also our goals for John Jay for the future, the pie in the sky, so to speak, of what we would love to have happen here at the college. So first, let's just talk about greenhouse gases just as a brief. In this case here, you just see a representation of the sun coming out to the earth. Now, the majority of the time, it just bounces off and nothing happens of it. But because of greenhouse gases, it is absorbed into our atmosphere, laid traps, and in that case, we then have heat. The heat then starts to build up faster and faster as we have more carbon dioxide and methane. So you can already see where the problems are starting to build up. In this case here, you can see when it comes to the climate crisis, over the last thousands and thousands of years, we've had ebbs and flows of that particular issue, but recently, within the last couple hundred years, since the Industrial Revolution, you can see the huge spike that's occurred with this particular crisis. And as you can see, as things continue to go as they are without any sort of intervention where we can change anything, it's just going to get worse. That's where we have to really think about what can we do to stave off from this actually ever happening. Because along with the climate crisis of CO2, we also then have the correlation of disasters, that being floods, storms, whatnot. That's all been correlated with this particular CO2 increase. As you can see, from every decade presented here, it's just getting worse and worse. So what can we, with the ongoing problem that will affect you, in this case, what else, unfortunately, do we have to worry about? Well, if you think about California, they deal with wildfires constantly, unfortunately. And as you can see here, over the last decade, past 2010 to 2020, it's just gotten worse. You can see just the correlation that's happening with this particular issue that's been occurring. Now, for us here, we don't really think about that because we don't really worry about wildfires like they do, unfortunately. But we did last year. How so? Well, Canadian wildfires impacted us greatly. Remember back in June of last year, we had to deal with the remnants of the fires that were north of us, that being the soot and the smoke that traveled down southward, that impacted us greatly. It's just a snapshot of what occurred during that time frame. It was horrendous. I remember it vividly. In this case, air quality was skyrocket, was plummeting, and in that case, we had to really worry about what was not necessarily next door to us, but just in a global sense, what was around us. This is how this can impact us, even though it may not be that much near to us. So what can we do here at John Jay to help mitigate this occurring? Well, in this case, we can look to other institutions to see what they're doing and see if we can take maybe a little bit of what they're putting forth and see if we can translate it over to us here. First, let's look at UC Berkeley. In this case, they instituted an electrification plant. In this case, what they did was they built a new plant which was utilized undersized field in the center campus, and the majority of their core energy system will be underground, including plant equipment, thermal energy, storage tanks, geothermal systems in new built into recreation fields. So they're using space that they had already, that was already dormant, to help facilitate a new type of electrification plant. Let's look at Stanford University. In this case, how they decarbonize. In this case, they set up a Stanford Energy Systems Innovations, SCSI. In this case, they have high voltage substation that receives electricity from their grid, large water tanks for thermal energy storage, converted the heat supply of all the buildings from steam to hot water, heat recovery systems, overlapping cooling needs. And in this case, they were able to reduce their emissions by 68%. So in this case, we're showing that this can actually work. So can we apply this 100% here? Well, I'm not sure. We can at least try and see if that is an implementation we could put forth. So in this case, we need to address the climate crisis in its totality. We perform years of thorough studies about how energy systems could be provided throughout the campuses. We have set up objectives that will help us attain our goals for the future on this campus. Now, CUNY, John Jay, and the state leadership must work together to decide which ideas to fund and to then implement. So in this case, we're going to then push forward what we're hopefully be able to put forth as one of our main goals here at the college. So first, total waste management. In this case, first, education. That's probably the hardest thing to do because people may not know what we're in essence talking about. But this is why we need things like this and more of them. We need more town halls to just push forth the ideas and information so that people can start to understand what in essence we're talking about and how we can actually put some make some impact when it comes to that. So we're doing that with decarbonization, but we should also be doing that for waste management in general, because from there we can then talk about waste diversion. That can go forth when it comes to food, but other things as well. For instance, scraps. We can talk about composting, both on-site and off-site. On-site, we can potentially do that here in our J1, for instance. But we also look to other things like off-site composting. There are other things like NYC compost that can assist us in facilitating us to compost and then drive it out to other areas within the city or in the neighboring boroughs as well. Food donation. Historically, we've had previous vendors here who have donated their food that was left over to other entities. For instance, we had, say, Apostles Church or even our own food pantry. Is that still being done? I'm not sure. But those are things we should investigate to see, make sure that our food vendors presently are doing that with those things. Also, a side thing when it comes to alkaline batteries. Traditionally, alkaline batteries are disposed of in our normal trash cans, but is that a safe practice? It depends on how you view it. Can we maybe organize it so that it can be put aside in a different collection area and maybe dispose of in a much more sustainable way? That's a possibility. We look to other entities and third-party vendors to see if they can come on site to assist us with something as simple as that. Now, when it comes to single-use plastics, that's a top-line topic because that's the thing that we really need to focus on because that can impact us a lot. In this case, we can look certainly to our cafeteria. Substitution of recyclable materials as part of their contract. And that's something we have to really make sure that they stick to because they signed a contract with us here and we need to make sure they're sticking to that contract as well. That would mean implementation of bamboo utensils, paper cups, and plates. In that case, we're also looking at our vendors. That's also another contract we should be focusing on because the more single-use plastics would lead to them more recycling. In this case here, contracts are ending. We then need to focus on when those contracts are renewed, how do we want to then make that more sustainable for us here at the campus? Also, our water fountains, kind of touched on a little while ago. In this case, we need more of them because if we promote it as something that is for us here, we need to make sure that it's more visible and also be more aware that we have them as well. We need all of our John Jay to have a refillable water bottle, which is kind of implemented a little while, but I think that's actually an excellent idea, to be honest. But if you're not aware, we actually have 18 fill stations here on campus. One in the BMW building, 12 in Harron Hall, 4 in the new building, and 1 in Westport. So if you have them, you may just not be aware of them because sometimes they're kind of tucked away, not really looking for them, unfortunately. But just so you know, we have at this point calculated that we saved roughly about 500,000 bottles based upon just using those refill stations. So it's a start. We just need to kind of build off of that as well. And then when we're talking about our outside, we're talking about pesticides. We have the J1 here, which has to be treated every year because of things that are growing over there. But can we find alternatives to that? Instead of just using the traditional pesticides, that can be very harmful for us. Well, working with third-party vendors, we can see if they can offer an alternative that can be maybe a little bit more sustainable and something that is less toxic, so to speak. Looking at neem oil, peppermint thyme, or rosemary oil repellents, or even other non-industrial insecticide soaps. In this case here, we can then just focus on renewable energies. Now, understandably, right now, we are tackling this somewhat. We do have the ability to heat our pool with renewable energy coming off from our facilities areas, but what else can we do here on campus? Let's talk about solar power. Those are things that are really starting to get really big when it comes to other buildings and such. Is it doable here? And if it is, where can we implement it? Where can it be most feasible for us to use it? So these are the talking points that we can start approaching now and then seeing where it can take us going forward. And then when it comes to peaker plants, so this is something that we gotta really be careful about because in this case here, you can see just by this graph, this picture you see on here, where are these peaker plants situated, and then look at the surrounding heat that's being built off of those. As you can tell, the peaker plants are emitting lots of CO2. And in that case, it goes right back to the slide you saw there, lots of CO2, sunlight coming in, trapping it as heat. And that's where the heat is starting to billow because of these peaker plants in particular. So in this case, how do we reduce our need for peaker plants? Well, all the stuff that we've been talking about, using renewable energy, not relying on these things as our primary focus for energy in particular. So it all kind of builds up with each other. All these little dominoes are all setting up along each other, and if we can set them all up nice and neat and proper, maybe we can actually do it some sort of impact here when it comes to not relying on these events in particular. So that's my talk. Thank you very much.
Yes, so now Senior Controller Radlander, thank you for being here. I know that you're very skillful.
Thank you. Let's do it one more time, though, for this great presentation. I'm Joe Radlander, and I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm trying to get to several of these Decarbonize CUNY town halls because I was so excited to see that this is happening all over the city. So first I want to thank the John Jay students who are stepping up to lead it here. I want to thank the PSC CUNY. Let's hear it for the students. All right. There's a lot going on. I mean, I came through your student activities fair, and I could barely kind of wend my way through. And it's great that there's so much going on. One big challenge of the climate crisis in general is everybody knows it's an existential crisis. Everybody can see it. We all know we've just lived through the hottest 12 months on the history of the planet. People that have been in New York City know that 2 of the last 5 years we had extreme rainfall that walloped our city. And yet, on every day, there's sort of so much else going on that can distract us. There are so many other important causes and so many things to do. So the leaders, the activists, the students, the organizers who stay focused on the climate crisis and help us make sure we face the most existential challenge of all, you deserve that applause. So thank you. Props also to the PSC CUNY chapter for stepping up on this campus and all across the campuses. I got to give a special shout out to my friend Nancy Romer, who's a big part of the reason I'm here. I know Public Power New York is part of your campaign. That's a fantastic campaign. Thanks to them and to the other centers that are a part of this as well. The New York City Controller is the city's chief financial officer and our chief accountability officer. And one way I think about it is as our chief long-term officer. Unfortunately, politics is a field that has you thinking about, the next election or maybe just like tomorrow's news cycle and not thinking 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years downstream. But that is the job of the Controller's office. We invest the pension funds that are retirement security for our teachers and CUNY professors and municipal staff. And that's a promise that runs out for decades. We invest in the city's infrastructure. And again, that means we need to be thinking decades out. And of course, we invest in the education of our young people, both in CUNY and in K-12. And all of that means it's my job, it's the city's job to be thinking about the long term. And obviously, if we do not ambitiously confront the climate crisis on the time frame it deserves, then we're failing. So what's critical to do, and I like that this presentation gets at, what are the assets that we have? What are the places where our institutions' footprints are big? What are the, we call it in the finance world, the financed emissions. What are the emissions you are most responsible for? So I'll start in the Controller's office because it's true that we have a building and food waste and a fleet, but by far the biggest source of emissions from the Controller's office. Anyone want to guess what the biggest source of emissions from the Controller's office is?
Travel.
Might be travel. Any other ideas?
Heat?
It's a little bit of a trick question.
Electricity for elevators?
Could be electricity for elevators.
Heat and air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Heat and air
We
conditioning.
do have really terrible, the municipal building. I mean, somehow if you look in the lobby, it says we have an A, but like that doesn't mean it's a full rating system. I have to tell you, there's no way it's an A. It is actually the money in the pension funds. So way more emissions come from the $275 billion that on the one hand are savings, right? That's money that the city said, okay, we're gonna make sure our teachers and firefighters and public hospital nurses have retirement security. So every year we're gonna take a little money, we pay a salary, but it might not be the best salary in the world, but at least we're gonna make sure you don't retire into poverty. So we have money, we put it in the city's accounts, but in order to make sure it's there, then we invested in the market. So we invested all in the stock market and, you know, in businesses all across the planet. And when you've got $275 billion invested, then you own emissions all across the planet from the investments you have in utilities, in transportation, in construction, in banks, everywhere. So, New York City's public pension funds have the most ambitious net zero plan of any U.S. public pension fund in the country. We're the third largest behind Southwest and CalSTRS, but our climate plans are the best of anyone. We have divested from fossil fuel reserve owners in our publicly traded funds. We're the only big fund to do that. In our infrastructure and private equities investments, we've excluded upstream fossil fuel infrastructure. We adopted a net zero goal by 2040, and we ambitiously engage with companies to pressure them, the companies and managers we invest in, to pressure them for change. So this year, we led shareholder advocacy at some of the biggest banks in North America, Citibank, JP Morgan, and Royal Bank of Canada. And for the first time, they finally agreed to disclose the ratio of their dirty fossil fuel lending to their clean lending. That has to switch from 2 to 1 in favor of fossil fuels to 4 to 1 in favor of clean energy, and they finally started disclosing. Thanks to our advocacy, we're putting pressure on utilities, on our asset managers, and working hard to make sure we reach that net zero pathway. The city as a whole, the biggest single source of emissions for the city of New York is our buildings. 70% of New York's fossil fuels come, of our emissions come from our buildings. That's why local law 97, the law that requires building owners, not just the city, but private building owners as well, to transition to clean energy and decarbonize is so critical, and we just aren't moving fast enough. So I'm delighted that you guys are stepping up to say, what can CUNY institutions do? You've got a great opportunity like the ones you've heard. You can look at your buildings, you can look at your food waste, you can look at your transportation. You can, of course, keep looking at your educational offerings and more opportunities for students. One opportunity where I'm hoping we can partner is on public power. I love that Public Power New York was part of this coalition. I was proud to support the Building Public Renewables Act last year. Let's hear it for that. If we build more public renewables and public options, you know, CUNY is essentially a public option. It's a public option for higher education. There's a lot of private options, but you guys knew we need a public option for higher ed. People are going to have access to public education, and everybody's going to be able to thrive. And it turns out that's true in energy as well. There are private power producers, but if we're going to meet our goals, then we need public ownership of clean energy, and the Building Public Renewables Act is a great start. CUNY campuses are so big, they can be a home for that. You could advocate, we want to be a place for solar farms. We want to consider, other forms of renewable energy that you can't do if you're a little single-family homeowner, but you can do if you've got a big footprint. I saw a windmill on the College of Staten Island campus, and they're using it to generate a little bit of energy, but also to train people, because Staten Island's going to be a big place for offshore wind. What an opportunity that is to think about, all right, how do we put more renewable energy on our campuses and use it to train people in the technologies and green jobs of the future. We're partnering on that in the Controller's Office. I'm pleased to tell you that we helped win a program called Public Solar NYC. We got a seed grant from the Inflation Reduction Act. And the idea here is to have a city-controlled public option for rooftop solar, because small homeowners, they don't have the out-of-pocket resources or the know-how always to put rooftop solar on, and a private company that comes and markets it, are going to take all the benefit for themselves. So what this program will do is say, the city, with this money we got from the federal government, with the little resources from the city as well, will say to 1 to 4 unit building owners, including low and moderate income homeowners, you don't have to come out of pocket, you don't have to do the work, we'll sign an agreement, we'll put the solar on your roof, the city will finance it, pay for it, we'll share the energy benefits, we got to get some of them for the city as part of the public solar network, but the residents and owners of that building can also have some of the energy benefits, and we believe we can scale this up and do it on thousands and hopefully hundreds of thousands of homes across the city. And we'd love to have CUNY as a partner as we're building that out. So I just want to say a great big thank you for all the work you're doing and commit to you that you've got a partner in the New York City Controller's Office. Let's do everything we can to decarbonize CUNY, to decarbonize NYC, and to build the green future that all of you deserve. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you.
Wonderful, thank you. So next up, we'll leave the questions for the very end because we're running a little bit late on our schedule and I want to leave time for our breakout sessions. And I know some people have afternoon classes. So, Zach, thank you. So give it a big round of applause to Zach.
Thanks so much, everyone, for having me. My name is Zach Jones. I'm an organizer with Public Power New York, which is a coalition of boards all across the state, chapters of the Democratic Socialists of America, Climate Orgs, and of course, BSC CUNY and other UKIPs. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about taking things to the state level. We learned about what it's like to decarbonize here at John Jay. We also talked about a little bit what the city is doing. Now let's talk about the state. So last year we had a major victory in the Build Public Renewables Act. This is what Brad Linder was just talking about, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it does. 4 really incredible things. 1, it ensures that we meet our climate mandates, which is 70% renewable energy by 2030 and 100% by 2040. And the way that it does that is we have this existing state public entity that can now build public renewables. That's new wind and solar that's going to be created. It creates tens of thousands of green union jobs to do that, securing great futures for these folks. It also accelerates the shutdown of peaker plants that were mentioned earlier as well. These are the smokestacks that turn on in the peak points of the summer when we're using tons and tons of energy, and they're the most polluting that it gets to be, and they create tons of asthma, and we need to shut them down as soon as we possibly can. So the more renewables we build, the sooner we can shut down all these polluting fossil fuels. And then lastly, and what's so great about having this public authority here is that it creates utility bill relief. So again, the more renewables that we build, the cheaper we're going to be able to make people's energy. There's going to be nobody who's going to debt anymore just because they're trying to turn the lights on. Just ridiculous. So a little bit about where we are now since this bill is passed. Governor Hochul is completely failing on our climate goals. She's admitted that we're currently 3 years behind on that 70% by 2030 target, and now we are fighting back against that because while she's fine with letting that slip, we all can't be. I'm glad that we're here with so many people that care about the climate who are ready to take action in some way. So speaking a little bit more about what it means here in the area, there's, again, these peaker plants all throughout the city, and you can see where they're located and where they're generating asthmas in some of the lower income areas of the city, and that's by design, and that's something that we're trying to put an end to. Meaning, again, the more public renewables that we can pressure the governor to build, the sooner these things can be shut down, the less kids have to grow up with asthma. And then, this is where all of you come in. So I'm just going to ask everyone to take out their phones for a quick 2 minutes here. We're all going to scan this QR code and quickly send a demand letter to the governor. It's going to be pre-populated, and what you're saying is, Governor Hochul, we need you to build 15 gigawatts of public renewables by 2030. We need you to shut down those peaker plants even sooner than that. We want tens, and we want our fellow New Yorkers to no longer be going into debt for their utilities. It's very powerful. Every one of these events, we've been sending these demand letters, and we're hearing from them that they're receiving them, and they're scared. And that's really the power of all of us coming together here today and taking action together. This is a great first step, and it's really a joy to be here with all of you to do that. Thank you.
So while you look at the projection. I'm going to go into my email and download something. So, in the meantime, if you have questions for Zach or Thomas, please maybe.
Anybody need to scan again? It's right over there.
Right there. Raise your hand. There's a mic for you.
Anyone have a question?
Yes.
Hi all. Really quickly, I'm here with Triage. We are a kind of advocacy organization that works towards decarbonizing our schools. We have a few chapters in different CUNY campuses, not at John Jay yet, but hopefully if any of you are interested, we can talk about it. But if you're interested in joining, we do a lot of advocacy work for local, city, and state policy, including the Public Renewables Act, Local Law 97, which Brad Lander talked about. So yeah, we have a table.
Right here.
Right, that would be right there. You can also feel free to talk to us if you have any questions, but thank you so much.
Wonderful use of the mic. Thank you. So now we're going to have Rewire Campus do a brief presentation before we break out into sessions. So with Rewire Campus, Clarice, she's alumna from John Jay, ex-president of the EJ Club. Give them a big round of applause.
So as mentioned, I'm Clarice, and I'm here with Rewire Campus. First and foremost, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk about decarbonizing not only John Jay, but all of CUNY. So first of all, who is Rewire? So Rewire is a student-founded, women-led nonprofit, and we want to see every school go synthetic pesticide and fertilizer free by 2030. We're also on a mission to turn college campuses into climate-resilient, biodiverse spaces. Me personally, I got involved with Rewire Campus a few years ago when I started taking some environmental justice classes at John Jay. Professor Mary Ting actually introduced me to the organization, and from there I became the campus organizer for Rewire Campus, as well as the vice president for the environmental club here at John Jay, and I'm now a policy intern for Rewire Campus. So the problem is that universities are at the forefront of innovation in academia, so why are they still poisoning people and the planet? A majority of schools rely on highly toxic pesticides to maintain landscapes, and research shows that 80% of Americans have glyphosate in their bodies. The default landscape is lawn, which provides minimal ecological benefits while also being the #1 most irrigated crop in America. And this is also a broader problem here at John Jay since we have so much limited green space that if we are managing our only green space with toxic pesticides, pretty much every student is going to interact with that at some point in their career here, and we should prioritize their health over anything. So here, what we're working on is the organic pilot project. This basically would be implementing an organic strategy that is science-backed and soil-based to kind of cure the soil problem, and once we have healthier soil, there will be no more weeds, or at least much less than we're treating now. So it would treat the problem as opposed to the symptom. In the long term, it's going to reduce water use, save money on synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, and it also improves soil health. This is really important with protecting students and groundkeepers alike, especially considering that synthetic pesticides are linked to cancer, reproductive health issues, and neurotoxicity. Building climate resilience because stronger and healthier soil is more equipped to sequester carbon. And this is really important, especially since we're in a metropolitan area where there's not a lot of green spaces. And protecting biodiversity because any synthetic pesticides are intended to kill basically anything besides grass, and we have things other than grass here, so it's important to protect what we already have. So that's all I have. Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to working together to decarbonize John Jay.
Woo!
Thank you so much. Okay, Nancy, yes. So give a good, big round of applause to Nancy. She's going to help us.
Yeah, this is another action item. I again just want to say thank you to all of you at John Jay. This is a wonderful turnout. It's really good material, and obviously you have a department here that's very involved with the environment. You're going to get a great education from that department, but from all the others as well. The political, the sociological, the economic impacts of climate change and what we can do about it. The most important thing is what we can do about it, because we can become emotionally drowned, in the potential horror of it. We want to do something now. I don't know how many of you have heard of Michelle Obama's speech at the Democratic National Convention, but one of her punchlines was, do something. Don't just say, oh my God, it's so bad, I can't think about it, but do something. So we came up with the idea of decarbonizing CUNY and joining into the Public Power New York fight for decarbonizing our buildings and really shifting the grid, particularly in the public sector, because it was something we could do something right here, and where we go to school, where we work, where we live. And so to me, it's a very exciting campaign because it's concrete. We can see those changes. We can live in those changes. So I'm going to ask you to do one more action item, and that is to pull out your phone and to call the governor. You're not going to speak with her. You just answer each. Sorry. And I'll help you get to it really quickly so you don't have to waste a lot of your time. But if you do, you see her phone number there, 518-474-8390. Pull out your phone, please call her. And yes,
I have an ignorant question.
yeah.
I'm going to call, but I don't actually know what 15 megawatts is.
Okay, thank you. That's not an ignorant question, it's a really important one. So one of the demands
Can you use the microphone,
Okay,
please?
sure. Thanks. Yeah, one of the demands that Public Power New York and therefore the DSC as well are making of the New York Power Authority, which is this public entity that's producing energy for the public sector. We are demanding that they build 15 megawatts of renewable energy. It's a huge amount. Maybe Zach has more information than I do on it. But the idea is that we wanted to have a concrete number to say, reach that goal, and then that can help the whole state move closer to its goal of 70% renewable energy by 2030. There is no way we can reach that goal unless the New York Power Authority jumps in to develop the renewable energy we need.
Yeah, Nancy has that right. And so just when it comes to the number here, we're talking about closing the gap of where we're at in renewable energy to where we want to be, which is 100%. And this 15 gigawatt number represents what NYPA, the New York Power Authority, can step in and build by 2030. So if it's helpful to think about it a little bit differently, this is like 12 million households that we can power with this, if it helps to hear it in those terms. But really what we're trying to do is get to 100% renewable energy, and this is the gap that they can fill.
Okay, great, thanks. And of course, a little spelling error, gigawatts. That's my fault. So if you save that number in your phone, because you probably will be calling Governor Hochul many times, hopefully, over the next years of her tenure as a governor. We don't know how long that will be, but for right now, she's our governor, and she should be in your contact list. So call her. When you get the number, you will have a long, hit one if you want this, two if you want, just hit one, and you'll go right to the voicemail. This will take you less than a minute, and then you will be a certified climate activist. So there you go. You want to say to her, please decarbonize CUNY buildings and and build 15 gigawatts, not megawatts, gigawatts of renewable energy. Okay? So we'll do it now. I'll do it with you. We'll just get the thing done first. It's a quickie. So we'll be making a lot of noise.
The call to decarbonize fuel to 15 gigawatts in the state. So we're trying to reach the target of 70% renewable energy by 2025. This is really
So, some of you who have to leave, please register if you haven't done so, and please take Hukul's number and keep doing it as many times as you can remember. Otherwise, if you can't stay for a few minutes, on the tables you will see that there's big wallpaper and some markers. There's probably not enough markers for everyone, so we'll have to be sustainable and share. But the whole idea is that you can write and be part of this conversation, and write about what brought you here and what are you most looking forward to taking away from today's town hall, and also what do you think John Jay should be doing to decarbonize or clean up its facilities. If it's something that we've talked about, please write it down, because the more we hear about what you think are our needs, the better to push forward. But if it's something new that we hadn't thought about, much better. So also, what are some things that can be done individually as students, faculty, and staff? What are things that need official John Jay support? And what are things that need government level support, like city and or state? So we have some state people and some city allies here. So let's think about what needs to happen. So we'll have a few minutes, around 10 minutes for these, and then we'll come back and share some thoughts. Thank you again. Please register. Please buy some refillable water bottles.
How much is these water bottles?
I don't know, they didn't say. Do you think it's worth it to keep the live stream on for the debrief? This might as well, right?
Yeah, you can always end.
I'm visiting from City Hall.
oh God, you're in your half retirement semester? Yes, I started my phase. 3 semesters. I worked on trying to do the 50-year PSC party last year with Jeremy Pecos and that, and I've been enjoying her trivia and the retirement party, kind of extended retirement posts on Facebook. Kind of been last January or maybe last fall. I think she's retired yet, right? Maybe right at the beginning of. Yeah, but now every time she puts anything on Facebook, there's always some like new friend congratulating her on her retirement. You know?
Tell me something.
It's this Thursday. I just saw the news.
It's hybrid. Yeah. I'm live naked.
Hey, nice to meet you.
I'm Cal.
I'm John.
Yeah,
Is
they're
it
all
in
hybrid.
person? Do you get it?
You can also join on Zoom, so you're fine.
This is always the one. My wife works like in a UN adjacent field, and like it's the general assembly right now, and it's just like if I see her during daylight, it's unusual. So I can't do the DA person. I'll need to. Yeah, I'll send them a little. Yeah. I have a student to chase down because it's like the last day of DOE stuff. I know I need to chase someone down for an incomplete. Chase someone down for the verification of enrollment.
Oh, is today the last one?
Yeah.
No, I thought I would get it now.
And so I've got that bookkeeping to do, and I'll send some bookkeeping for the TA. So you just started?
Yeah, I started in
I saw the words new and Danny, but I didn't know if you transitioned from the spot like within.
No, yeah, I'm new to the union, but it's been great. Yeah, I started at the beginning of the summer, so it's like been a little while now, but most of it was like when we were in summer mode, and now we're obviously ramping back up for the semester, so it's been exciting.
Are you going to be more in charge of media or technology?
I'm in communication, so I work with Fran, and like lots of like website stuff, but also like I've done a bunch of the promo for these events, so like press releases and but yeah, it's kind of like I have my hands on different pots and like helping different teams, like J working group, like amplify the work that they're already doing.
Something I just realized would be maybe good, and we talked a little bit about this Cam Stemberg like years ago, but like when people were on Twitter for not evil reasons, but just like I was just tweeting about this event, and like having a list to contact people that are running those things, and then maybe from you guys having like a template or like a reminder come to our emails that's sort of like it says like PSC comms team, so it stands out a little bit.
Wait,
in our
I'm
email.
so glad you're saying this because we're working on this right now.
That sort of thing, just so it could be like here's because I'm like. I of course can like retweet PSC thing, but if I like would have to go to it and like download a picture.
No, for sure. We're working on a model where we'll have like exactly like you said, we'll send out templates to folks who have expressed interest. And we'll have like even like a one-click like text tweet option, or like folks can modify it themselves. But if you give me your email, I can add you to that right away because Union Week is next week, and we're gonna try to start doing some of that for like our Reds for Hire Ed stuff.
Thank you for having us. I saw your email.
Yeah.
I'll
I'm
let you
writing on
know
my
we
bookmark
decide
right
on which ones and the legal one.
You want to give me your email?
Don't know that we have any meetings.
No, yeah, about our organizer who might be able to.
Oh, I see. Yeah, unfortunately, the chapter chair, they're just can't do it.
Yeah, it's okay.
They're pushing her, which I have time for. We have a
I think you
boiled
also are
gem.
like exactly right that we want it to be coming from obviously our main account, also from the chapter-based accounts, but also just from members and like supporters, because the more different kinds of places that are sharing messages, the more likely it is.
And like a template's one thing, and one thing is like also having like you guys work on a graphic, and then like so like do we need to get something down to like down to Broadway to pick up a packet to bring up to the thing to pass stuff out, or can we just like put some of the stuff on websites and And there's usually a little like attraction.
Sent that one out. That's a great idea.
I didn't write the .com very well for Gmail, but I think you'll get it.
Post this back to you. Beautiful. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. I'm sure Fran will be very happy to hear that. You know, they had a social media action team I think a few years ago, and it just was like I think a little bit beyond his capacity to cope with everything for it. But now that I'm on the team and we have to tell Amanda who does a lot of our social stuff, they distributed enough that we're like we'll ultimately build our power a lot to have some sort of system.
Yeah, it's just sort of, I know it's like another step and another thing to do, but like if you kind of like workflow it or like have that thing, so it's like, okay, like draft, approved, whatever, tweet, and you're like, okay, oh, and now, like,
send it out.
Copy, attach, send out.
It's just the list of really
Yes, I did.
Nice to meet you.
You know, this turnover is just amazing. Minutes, and we can get the public power. You know, we can do almost the same thing here with a couple of substitutes. You have a lot of people at Lehman who are, they have a big earth and environmental science department. And a number of those people are activists, but there's no way to like
Yeah, we can definitely connect and figure out logistics. But I do think our organizer is willing to do it, so we can. Yeah.
Thank you so
Of
much.
course, thank you. I'll see you at another one soon, I'm sure. Okay.
Good to meet you.
Bye-bye. So nice to have student organizers.
Yeah. Different turnout from the Grad Center event. We got lots of students here, which is good to see.
And the outreach was really not so fabulous, but it was fabulous enough.
Thomas needs to go in a few minutes, so does anyone have any questions for him in particular? Don't be shy. Question for Thomas?
I was curious about the Katana field. Where is that? The stopping fertilization?
Oh, that Clarice had to go. So, but she's alumna, but she's still in charge of that pilot, she told me. And apparently, the people who are doing the landscape, I'm gonna get in touch with them. She's gonna put me in contact. But it's someone from the Environmental Justice Club. So the vice president and Clarice are in charge of helping with that pilot. The pilot apparently was to have one of the 3 rectangles, but now apparently they want to go with the 3 of them instead of, like bypassing the pilot. And they're getting in touch with whomever is the vendor for, which funny enough is called organics something or other. And so we're going to step up, and instead of doing the pesticides, we're going to do the organic way of using the pesticides. That's my alarm for the 10 minutes. So hopefully we can see that change before the spring, I'm hoping, because it's something that is really needed. Yeah.
Madonna, I have a question for Thomas. Can you tell us about the single-use plastic process? Like, how far along are we in getting rid of them? Because I know I still see them all the time.
Yes, so it varies actually. Yeah, it varies oddly, because in some events I see that they are utilizing some bamboo utensils, for instance, and then other times they are not. That's still an ongoing process. We're trying to get getting a meeting with the vendor specifically, touch on those types of inquiries, and then to kind of just reaffirm that we we've learned that through their contract that they sign, they're supposed to be implementing that as part of their process here. So we are going to be discussing that with them not too distant future. So I'm hoping to get that meeting soon when it comes to that.
Anyone else has a question or a suggestion? Or Thomas actually just shared that he had a great suggestion for the people who sell the water bottles, which is to put a map of where those refillable stations are on campus, so whoever buys the water, I see some hands nodding, great idea. So yeah, we can find them easily and start using them. And maybe ask for more, because 18 on this size campus is really not enough. The new building should have more, I guess, but we don't have more. They got all the fancy sustainable things, the dual flashing toilets and all that. Anyhow, anyone else? For Zach, maybe any questions at the state level? Any questions that you could think of when you were working on your little breakout sessions?
Yeah,
Paul, you?
No.
Or,
I just wondered, hi, I'm Sarah Meister, I'm a faculty member in interdisciplinary studies. I am wondering if there is any kind of public, easily accessible data about what most of our emissions are. Somewhere is there like a pie chart or a graph that says like, John Jay's building, this percent comes from heating and cooling, and this percent comes from single-use plastics. How do we find out that information?
It's a good question. That would actually be more for facilities, I would believe, in that case. They would probably have to have that information, so we would have to reach out to facilities directly and get that from them to see where we've been going. Understandably, from 2020 on, where things have started to track upward again because of the shutdown and everything. So, but they have to get that information. So they would be the department in question where you seek that.
It just seems to me that it would be helpful to sort of know what the big picture is in order to decide where we want to target energy and effort.
yeah, that's a great question. I did contact the people in facilities asking for a master plan. I'm still waiting for that answer. And also in the revamping of the website, I think that is a crucial thing for all of CUNY campuses. But since we're revamping the website, it would be great to have that as one of the highlights that John Jay is doing this decarbonization work. So hopefully we'll get that information, and then I actually don't know who's doing the website. I'm still trying to figure that out. So if anyone has that information.
I know.
Okay. Anyone else has questions or thoughts about what you came up with, ideas about individual or institutional or?
I don't know. Well, I don't have no question about it, but it is that there's an action next Tuesday in White Plains, and also that there's going to be a strike next. This Friday coming up, this is for fighting the future. So I told them that whoever, if it's our right, wants to participate with them, the meeting will be in Fullsburg, and it's at 2 p.m. Because we're going to be marching across the Brooklyn Bridge, and then we'll have a short rally. So because there's going to be an action next Tuesday in White Plains to call to end point. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Maybe, do you want to write down the information here? I see that nobody wrote here. So oh, it's right there. Beautiful. So if anyone is interested, it's right there at that corner table. Thank you, Thomas. Does anyone else wants to share anything of your thoughts, what you took out from today's town hall?
Yes. I've been doing a lot of talking. Do you want to say what the impression you had about? Well, I think that's what, these students both had the impression that there was a garden here and that there should be a gardening club. And they're both willing to talk about that, so directing other people for whatever she could do, right?
love gardening myself, and that was one of the first things that I looked up when I arrived at John Jay last year. There is a gardening started at that far corner, so the northeast corner of the garden, you'll see that there's some plants and some, planters and things growing. I have not seen much happening from last year to these, and I've seen, signs, and some people, I think there's a professor from the English department, and then there's the child care center that has, or, claims to own, like a patch there. But a gardening club would be amazing, and I think it's all connected into the climate change that we need to make happen, so, yeah, please make it happen.
The environmental club is actually doing stuff out there, remember? You can talk about it. The environmental club is a student club here on campus, and Evie and I are the advisors. And they are planning to do some planting out there, so maybe that would be a good place to start. And then if they don't want to specifically do gardening, then you could start your own club. Yeah. I know that they're going to try to plant more native things, trees and things.
Yeah, they usually hold planting events in the spring, but you can either spring off from them or form your own club and, and talk to them. I think that they're at the Hounds Fair right now with the table. Okay, great.
Sorry to speak again, but I just wanted, there are two things that I wanted to say that I think I'd be remiss in not saying. And one is that part of why we wanted you to sign in when you first arrived was to be able to keep in touch. So if there is an environmental club, or there's a rewilding effort, or there's single-use plastics, or whatever may be the case, there can be a way of people connecting and letting each other know. If it comes to pass that people want to act on something all together, there's a big thing happening, you want to all do something together, there's more communication capacity. And it's one of the great things about having a bigger group like this get together, and then there can be some follow-through depending upon what you want and what happens in the world. That's one. Two, and something that I forgot to say, and I think that Brad Lambert touched on it, but didn't explain it fully, and that is the Inflation Reduction Act, which is Biden's signature climate policy and legislation. And it will, it's all about decarbonization. And it will give any entity, public or private, 50% of the cost of any decarbonization project when it's completed. So let's say John Jay spends $5 million to decarbonize. Okay, when that project is completed, as a public entity that doesn't pay taxes, they're going to get $2.5 million back in cash as soon as it's finished. If you spend $20,000 on solar panels for your apartment house or for your individual house or your business, as soon as it's done, you'll get $10,000 off on your taxes. Not cash, but tax deduction. I don't know about you, but when I see something I really want at 50% discount, I buy it. I don't wait. We need to move now. We can't wait. We've got the 50% reduction price. We've got the movement behind us. We've got a public power authority that can make it happen. What they need is the push, and we are the push. And then, we can be the heroes of our own generations, the many generations represented here. So I'm just so happy that this is happening, and that people are excited about it, and that we're going to go forward together. And I bet there are a lot of other comments that people have written. Anyone else want to say what you've come up with in your papers? Oh, sorry. Okay. There you go.
Just going off of the community garden that everyone's been mentioning, I wrote down and discussed with my group the concept of producing some of the plans for edible food like vegetables for students.
mentioned, and I forgot to mention, it's important to register so that we can keep in touch, because this is only the beginning, and hopefully, it will move forward and fast, and there will be things for everyone's interest to do. And if they don't exist, you can create them. It's a town hall meeting to start this movement at John Jay, or rather to revive it, because there were other instances that were sort of cut off by the pandemic. So it's important to be here today for that regard. I promise we're not selling anyone's email. So please register. The register QR codes are on each table, right here, right there. And we'll make sure to keep in touch and, keep this movement going. It's super important, and now it's the moment. So thank you very much again for being here. Thank you. And I take pictures of what you wrote. So.
And a round of applause for Bibi for working. I
had so much help from everyone I mentioned in the beginning, but thank you again to all who helped and everyone who's here, because that's the most important help, being here. Thank you again. Have a wonderful afternoon.